I Accidentally Became a Global Stock Photo and Other Strange and Wonderful Series is a memoir written by artist and author Shubnum Khan. In this collection of interestingly enticing tales of her journey around the world, Shubnum opens up about some of her experiences and encounters during these travels. She also gives a detailed introspective reflection on what it means to be a woman, particularly a single Muslim woman in South Africa who's trying to find herself in a modern world. To give us a glimpse of her journey as she narrated in this offering, Shubnum joins me now via Skype. Shubnum, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Simpiwe. Thanks for having me.
Now, this book is described as part memoir, part travelogue, and part love letter. Just in your own words, how would you best describe what this book is all about?
Well, it's a collection of stories that take you through my life as a young girl growing up in Durban and reading lots of books when she was young and wanting to see the world. And then as she grows up, having these kind of adventures that take her around the world. So living in China and strange adventures. So becoming a bride on a rooftop in Shanghai and then becoming the accidental global stock photo. And it's a collection of these funny and crazy stories, but it's also an introspective reflection of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be traveling alone. It's a reflection on culture and religion as well.
Let's talk about the title of the book as well as the story behind the book's cover photo.
Well, so the title is How I Accidentally Became a Global Stock Photo. And it's we use that title because it was one of the more bizarre stories in the book. Mm-hmm. And it was how when I was in university, I went for a photo shoot that I thought was for an art project or that the photographer was using for a portfolio. And years later, I found myself in an advert in Canada, and someone pointed out that this was from that photo shoot. And when I contacted the photographer, I was told that I'd signed a document and I'd sold this photo. And there was a lot of us that day. It was like, 100 people. And so we found ourselves in adverts all over the world, in New York for teeth whitening adverts and carpets. I was in McDonald's adverts in Singapore and China. And it made stories on CNN and BBC and CBS. And it just was this crazy story of how I'd lost control of this photo without realizing it. And I hadn't made a cent from it.
And you say that this book is an account of how you chose what you wanted to be despite criticism and fear.
Yeah, so I was brought up in where I was told that a girl had to do a certain thing and she wasn't allowed to go and do this and she wasn't allowed to travel. And because I'd grown up reading so many books, I wanted to go and have adventures and I wanted to travel. And for a long time, that didn't seem possible. And it's only kind of when I pushed against that and I decided I want to try and do things my own way. And when I was about 27, I went to go and live in a village in Kashmir on a mountain in the Himalayas. And I taught at a school there. And it's only when I took that first step to try to be brave that I could eventually start taking more steps to be brave. And that's kind of like how the other stories started happening, just because I decided I can go live in a village on a mountain. Mm-hmm. And even though it was hard, I proved to myself that I could do it. Yeah. Okay.
And speak to us about the story that you share about your birth that you describe as a tragedy.
Yeah, so I start off the book with I was supposed to be a tragedy, the chapter called I was supposed to be a tragedy. And it's mainly because I was born in an Indian family. And, I think in every family, but particularly in Indian families, boys are revered. And I was the fourth daughter. And so, it was assumed that I was supposed to be a tragedy because people just kept telling my mother they're so sorry that she didn't have a boy and, better luck next time. But I explain in that chapter that actually it was the best thing ever to have 3 older sisters, to grow up with sisters who understood what it was like to be a woman, what it was like to be a Muslim woman. And it really helped shape me and prepare me for the future, being surrounded by such a strong support of women. And so I started the chapter saying I was supposed to be a tragedy, but I wasn't.
What are some of these interesting and totally unbelievable stories about your travels that you share? I mean, from being interrogated about your secret marriage to being trapped in New Delhi after an earthquake and to being invited to a party in the Upper East Side of New York.
Well, it's just I didn't expect to have all these adventures, and because I didn't expect to be traveling even, it added more to the sense of wonder. So these are strange stories, definitely, but also it's because I think I look at the situations with a sense of wonder, and they're also interspersed with quite ordinary stories of how I met this woman crying at a fountain in Morocco, and I went and hugged her. And so you've got we've got these extraordinary stories, but you've also got these very ordinary stories. And for me, that's about finding the extraordinary in each moment, in the mundane, in the ordinary. And so, yes, there's crazy stories, but there's also just reflections of how we can find magic in everyday moments.
And perhaps one of the interesting ones where you share your experience in Kashmir, a small village in the Himalayas. Speak to us about this and the mark it left on you.
Well, that was my first trip alone. I'd never traveled alone, and so everything left me in wonder. So even though it was difficult, we had to get up there by horse. There were no roads going up there. There were fleas biting us. We'd have to have bucket baths, and sometimes there wasn't electricity or hot water. But I guess because I was in such a state of wonder of being here and seeing these stars, you could see the Milky Way. That's how bright the stars were. And I guess that sense of wonder kept me buoyed, kept me floating. And the children, particularly in that village, left a mark on me just because they were so eager to learn. A lot of them at that point nobody had a fridge in the village. They were just animals and horses. They hadn't even seen a car in their life. And the kids were just wonderful. They were always willing to help you. If you didn't know how to walk up the mountain, they'd assist you with your horse. And they would climb up for 2 hours up the mountain to get to the village school, because that's how well known the school was known in the area. And they were just so eager to learn. It was wonderful.
Gosh, and to think that 6 years ago, Shubnum, you were not even allowed to travel by yourself, to now being a globetrotter and a social media sensation from sharing your travel stories is quite phenomenal. Just take us back to how your life was 6 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I say in the beginning of the book, I just felt like I was stuck in my life. I was expected to be married. I was expected to have children. I wasn't allowed to travel. I felt depressed. I was very depressed for a long time. I didn't write. Onion Tears was my first novel that came out 10 years ago, and I didn't write because I was just feeling stuck and sad. And that's when I heard about the school in Kashmir, and I was like, I need to go and teach at the school. I don't know why. I can't understand, but I do need to push myself, because if you get stuck in a comfort zone, you're not going to go anywhere. And you can read so many books about being brave, but if you can't be brave, then what is the point? So things changed from that point onwards.
Now, when you look back at all these stories, what would you say this journey has taught you about your own self and the world?
I think simply we're just to fight for yourself.
Yes,
and people
yes,
will always tell you what to do and how to be. But you have to choose, you have to see where you want to go and follow that path. And that it doesn't matter if you go off to the edge and it seems scary. You have to follow what you need to follow, and you're living your life. You're the only one living your life. I begin the book with a quote by Mary Oliver saying that, what is it that you plan to do with this wild and precious life? Because it's your life at the end of the day. And so that's what I hope people get from the book, that follow your own path and do what you want to do and live your life to the fullest.
Great stuff. Thank you, Shubnum. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, the most important is that, you say these stories you share in this book are about trying to keep the lights on. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Joining us on Skype is artist and author Shubnum Khan. We've been discussing her latest book titled How I Accidentally Became a Global Stock Photo and Other Strange and Wonderful Stories. All right, it is 7:45. Let's now take a quick break. We'll be back shortly. This is Morning Live.